implications for Democrats. So we're joined by a member of House leadership. It's Democrat Debbie Dingell of Michigan. And if this border threat isn't a bluff, it'll have major implications for the border. And in a moment, I'll be joined by someone who ran it, former DHS Secretary Jeh Johnson. But let's begin with the politics and Congress and Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. She is co-chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. Congresswoman, I want to just start simply with, what was your initial reaction to the president's announcement last night?
Chaos, total chaos. I am somebody who lives in a state that needs a new NAFTA. Tariffs are an economic tool to level the playing field for working men and women across this country. What he did last night is one of my problems with his. I've said I'd work with him on trade policy. I meant I've worked with him on trade policy because I owe it to my workers. And what he did last night just simply, I'm just totally aghast. It makes
Does this torpedo NAFTA 2.0? Well,
I want to get back to the Congress next week. I've been back here talking to everybody, and my workers, I've been in a lot of union halls, want to see a trade deal passed. So, you know, I can't, my job is to deliver for them. But if he keeps on this path, I think it's a very good chance it's going to torpedo something that he promised the workers in my state he'd deliver on.
I mean, they started the clock. I don't want to get off on sort of legislative speak here, but essentially what made no sense about last night's announcement is it came on the same day that the administration decided they were getting impatient with you guys in Congress and saying, hey, step up, let's get this passed sooner. If they wanted it passed sooner, then why do what they did last night?
It just makes no sense. I mean, I simply can't understand it. And you know, I've always been a Democrat that said, if you do this right, you fix the enforcement on Mexico, fix pharmaceutical drugs, I'm going to be there helping you get it passed. And then all of a sudden, a lot of Republicans started supporting this. Well, he got blown apart today by Republicans, and some of the most important Republicans that there are in the Senate is Chuck Grassley. I mean, just absolutely. And Mitch McConnell, Senator McConnell, leader of the Senate, has withheld his support. This is chaos, and we cannot rule by chaos in this country.
Do you think this is somehow related to Robert Mueller coming out on Wednesday?
You know, we know that he's very effective in messaging, and we know that every time, I mean, I think Robert Mueller on Wednesday told everybody, Republicans and Democrats, do your job. The president always gets very uptight when he hears people saying things like this and is very good at deflecting on message. I don't know what his timing was. I can't, my problem with his trade policy, when I'm someone that would be more likely to help him than not at times, is his inconsistency, the randomness of it, and the total chaos of it.
Very interesting. Something you said when I brought up Robert Mueller, you said you thought the message Robert Mueller sent to Congress was do your job. What's your job? Did you hear him? Did you hear open a grand jury inquiry, i.e. impeachment inquiry?
You know, I'm one of the people that he told everybody to read this report. If you haven't read the report, read it. I still want to see him testify, by the way, because I hate parsing people's words and everybody else's. But there is a very that theme that is throughout this report about how Russia is trying to divide this country. And I don't want to play into Russia's hands and divide this country more with a partisan impeachment. So I am totally schizophrenic right now about all of the different things that are in there. So I do think he was telling people that his report is his testimony. People can interpret that report to be what we want it to be, I guess. But I have read it. I'm on my third reading. And I think we have to do this in a bipartisan way. I think Republicans and Democrats have a responsibility.
There's one member of your delegation that's a Republican that held a town hall and some would say is laying out a case for impeachment much more thoroughly than any Democrat. And I'm referring to, obviously, Justin Amash.
I respect him very much. He and I have been colleagues since I got here. His office was next to mine. I don't agree with him, although he and I vote more often on some issues than when it comes to, I mean, he's a libertarian. He believes in protecting civil liberties, but he also always votes the way that he thinks. And he's a very honest, he can drive some people nuts, probably including me some days, but I really respect him.
It's funny that you said you've been schizophrenic about this impeachment issue. Frankly, I feel like the Democratic Party in general has. I want to play you some sound from both Jerry Nadler, Speaker Pelosi, and yourself on this and just sort of try to get a sense of where we're headed. Take a listen. Number one, guys.
Impeachment is a political act, and you cannot impeach a president if the American people will not support it.
We can't impeach him for political reasons, and we can't not impeach him for political reasons.
We understand our oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
We don't need a divided country when it comes to impeachment.
You see where I'm getting here? I think the confusion is this, and I think, look, we've had this discussion, I think you and I, off the record, about the issue of what's playing politics. Not impeaching, is that the political decision? Impeaching, is that the the last time I feel like your party had this divide was over the Iraq war issue, where a lot of people were thinking politically, and what was good politics in the moment turned out to be bad politics 5 years later.
You know, I'm doing what I think is right for the country. That is, I think we have a fundamental responsibility. We take the oath to protect the Constitution. And if you read that report, and I know you've read that report, like I have, Mueller talks about how Russia is attacking the fundamental pillars of our Constitution. They're trying to divide us. So how do we keep, I'm very worried about how divided we are as a country. And I think we're at a precipice. So the question is, how do we bring people together to do what's right to protect this democracy that's more precious than people realize?
But can it be done if the president himself isn't cooperating?
He's putting kerosene on a fire. He's refusing to send people up to the Hill. You know, at some point, people are going to be driven to have no choice. And I'd like to think I worked for Senator Bob Griffin many a decade ago as an intern. Right. I was young. But I remember how people watched. It was a Republican, and he was one of the turning points. I flew with him back to Washington the day that he came out. And they watched the facts. I think it's very important for us to follow the facts and that nobody is above the law.
Congresswoman